Welcome, everyone. Welcome to Banyan Workspace. Welcome to Entrepreneur Stories. This is a live recording, but we don't need pin drop silence. So please don't feel that you need to sit there and you're allowed to express yourself, laugh, cry if something makes you cry.
Hopefully not.
Hopefully not. Hopefully not.
Money makes us happy.
It's right.
Money makes us happy. Absolutely. Christine, Nicole, thank you so much for being here. Welcome
Thank
yourselves. We've got a lot to go through, so I'm going to dive straight in. On the Sophia website, it says, together we found we had an amazing passion and single-minded goal of getting more women in control of their personal finance and ready to start investing. What is Sophia and what excites you about the mission you both are on?
It's a great question. I'm very excited that we're here and, being able to participate today. I think we often say, and certainly the big thing is just talking about women and their money is really what excites us, and engaging with women and engaging with them on their financial journey, their money story, their goals, their fears. We'll talk a little bit around why women don't invest, but for us, such a big driver. And so Sophia really is here primarily to help women start investing. And how do we help them get there? And it's, there's so many challenges that we'll be covering during this session around getting women to invest. So really we're putting a stake in the ground and saying that our DNA is around how do we work with women. And when we say women and their partners, their friends, their family, their mum and dad, their children. To us, it's a very inclusive discussion. It is not exclusive at all because, women look at money in context of our lives. We aren't just thinking, oh, I just want to invest in one ETF. It's like, okay, mum's called me and something's happened and, is chatting to me about money and I'm having to help her or I'm talking to a friend. It's just things are happening in our lives that are driving us on our money. But from an investing perspective, all the research shows women aren't investing enough. So Sophia is here to really engage with women, engage with companies to support their employees and their customers' financial well-being.
Amazing.
Yeah.
And you were telling me earlier that you really focus on B2B. So you work with companies and women who are, I guess, employees in those companies.
Correct. Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I do want to add, actually, what also excites me and excites us is, since you've been on our website, you'll have seen that our tagline is learn, invest, and change the world.
Yep.
And what really excites us is the fact that when women have money, women do amazing different things with their money. And that is what gets us really excited, especially when 60% of the world's wealth in the next 5 to 7 years is going to be in the hands of women, right? It's the largest inter and intra-generational wealth transfer that we are experiencing in the world. And so that excites us because with our money, we are going to reshape the world, into a much better place. And so that is so exciting to us for sure.
And what's driving that change? So it's more women in the workforce, more women going to university, and then
all the above. So we think about it, there's just more women in the workforce more than ever at any point in history right now. Also, women are inheriting wealth. So both from their parents, but also from their spouses, right? Guess why? Women are living longer. Women live on average 5 years longer than men, right? Than their partners. So women are also the beneficiaries of that. But yet, we haven't seen the financial services industry engage women in their money journeys. And that is what we are here to do. We are here to also reshape the landscape of how women engage with money and how their service, right? And how they are, the financial services industry is becoming more inclusive, catering to women's needs.
Yeah. And
just from that financial services is that they're not engaging with women enough. But that's where talking to corporates and being part of an ecosystem where you're hearing it both in the media, the importance of getting on top of your money and learning to invest, but also, working with your employer and being exposed to programs that can help you do that, where you're being encouraged to take that is just another way to really take control of that opportunity. And that's why we've worked with nearly 25 corporate clients globally, both banks, insurance companies, luxury goods, in terms of ratings companies. We've worked across lots of markets. And the common thing is that women are coming up and saying we do want to have more information. In our research shows 96% of women want more financial education.
Mm-hmm. So this may be a stupid question, but I think it's good to get it out there early. What is investing?
Ooh. Well, basically, you work hard for your money, so you want your money to work hard for you, right? And so that is what you do with investing. You are making sure that you are making money while you sleep. Yeah. By the way, that is on our merch. We have, I wish we brought some today, but we have an eye mask.
You're sourcing them.
We have tons of money. We have an eye mask that says, I'm making money while I sleep. So that is what investing is to us. But more than that, right? It's also, again, we talked about how women are going to be changing the world of investing when they have more money in their hands, right? Yeah. And it's really also about, women are actually, and the research shows this, women invest, are twice as likely to invest with ESG factors in mind, right? Okay. So women invest differently. And so that is also a really exciting thing. So investing is making your money work hard for you, but also, right, with a thinking of women in mind, it's about, well, how are women going to be changing the world with their investing power, with their investing dollars? They also, by the way, are twice as likely to invest in other women-owned businesses, right? And that's actually the first problem we were trying to solve with Sophia. But so it's such an interesting place to look at the way women invest and how they're going to be changing the world with their money.
So we're going to dive into a lot of this, but let me ask you one question first. Where did the name Sophia come from? I'm curious.
It was really easy, actually. I have to say, we love our brand name because it means wisdom in Greek.
Oh, so, it's wisdom. Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Amazing.
And so that's what we want to impart is this knowledge and wisdom and lack of fear around money and investing and financial goals and retirement, which we want to rename something much more fun because you hear retirement, your head just goes, oh my God, that sounds like hard work. Yeah. So
wisdom. Cool.
We get that a lot, actually.
Yeah. Interesting. So I stalked your LinkedIn's and I stalked your career histories, and you both had long and distinguished careers in banking. Was there or in finance, was there an aha moment for you guys that made you kind of leave and come together and think that you guys could find a way to be a solution to the problem that you've explained?
I think first, we probably separate, and Nicole will talk about her experience, but I think we both probably, encountered our own aha moments we had to discover this issue, right? Of this, female financial and women in financial equity. So I think I can't, I like to say that I grew up on 2 trading floors in Hong Kong and New York. Okay. And I think what I saw was a lot of women in the finance industry, but not a lot of women taking P&L decisions, right? Not in decision-making roles. Okay. And so that really stuck with my mind. I'm like, why is that? Why aren't we in these direct financial management roles? When I left banking, well, before that, actually, I think your original question was that aha moment, right? It was like, why? When I left banking, I taught myself angel investing and impact investing. Okay. And again, I saw the same thing. It's like, why am I one of the very few women angels out there? And that was another sore moment for me. And so I think that was just, I think my eyes, when it came to gender and money, were just really opened. And I think once you learn about the gender wealth and investing gap, it is a problem you cannot unsee. And I was obsessed with the gender investing gap. And it was just very fortunate that I met the wonderful Nicole on this journey as well. Yeah.
Did you meet before you left, or did you meet after you left?
We met after.
Yeah.
And for you, Nicole?
I think obviously it started in the corporate space, but I think it was in me from such a young age. Growing up, I was really always want to be in, sometimes you'll be at family barbecues. I was always like the men in one corner, the women in the other corner. I always want to be in both conversations. Really frustrated me. I couldn't be listening to everything everyone was talking about. And women don't socialize enough around money. And I think I was always conscious of that growing up. I could be quite annoying about it, I think. And then when I was in corporate, I was traveling extensively. And not only was I always in offices that had very senior people in CEO, CMO, lots of CFO roles, everything, but, women weren't in product development, innovation. I really wanted to see women building products and developing opportunities for women and also servicing women. So in terms of making sure that when we produce medical products, women have been well researched and part of that. Like there's so many challenges around the way phones being developed, iPods being developed, car seats and the safety around that. Women just weren't involved. And so from the back of that, I was very interested in how do I help women fundraise to build businesses that were really going to be the companies of the future. And that was really what I was interested in. But as part of that journey, it was very obvious there weren't a lot of women investors out there. And the amount of women that come up to me and go, can I have a female investor? And I'm like, I would like to find you one, but between us, we probably know them all in Asia. And there just weren't enough. And so we used to do kind of pitch, like fast pitch nights where I would bring female founders in, you would bring investors in. Christine was the only female investor that was there. And so we just met through that and we kept talking about why aren't we engaging
So that's how you guys met? Yeah.
That's how we met. So we were in different, I had and I still have a different company that focuses on teaching around capital opportunities for women because I just love talking about money and I think we should all be really open about it. So it was through those conversations we really recognized, okay, why aren't more women here at these events we're hosting? And then we started talking about how do we teach women about investing, but it quickly grew into, well, people asking around, hold up, if I invest here, should I be investing here? How do I know this is the right way to invest? Or is this the right way I approach my portfolio? I don't have a portfolio. Where do I start to build one? And we just had bountiful questions around investing. And I think Sophia just quickly grew out of, you know, what the market was saying to us, which women were saying to us, we want to know more about investing widely.
That's amazing. I wanted to jump on a couple of things you said. The main one being you talked about there were not many women investors. One of the things that, and I want to come at this from, so just for context, I've got 4 businesses and all 4 of them are run by women. And a lot of people ask me why, and we can touch on that later, but it's not only that there are not a lot of women investing, there are also women looking for investment and struggling to get it more than men. And I was just wondering if you wanted to maybe speak to that and what happens there, because I feel like a lot of the things that I read, it's much harder for a woman founder to get funding than it is for a male founder to get funding. I feel it's changing, but I'd love some context around that from what you guys have seen.
And that's actually, again, why we came together, because we were both focused on female founders. And so we came together because actually, just as conversations, not looking to start a company, let me tell you. We were having
just organically
we had regular conversations about wait, what is happening, you know, because the number of 2% going to VC dollars going to female founded businesses.
So it's 2%.
It's better now.
It's better now.
But it's actually worse than you think. No, it's not that it's worse. That's correct. It's like it varies between 1.7 and 2.9. But the reality is the amount of companies that take investment is very small. Most companies don't take venture capital investment. So you're talking about 2% of a very small number of companies. So it's smaller than you even think about that. So no, Christine's right in that, but you chop that number down further. It's minuscule, but it's partially key person risk. A lot of female-owned businesses are sole founders, and you know, investors are looking for co-founders plus. Because if one founder fell over, then there's someone else to pick it up. And so, but if you're a sole founder, obviously there's an investment risk if something changed and you are unable to run the business, right? So there's definitely that. A lot of the search for companies to invest in happens through pitch nights. And, you know, a lot of women aren't attending pitch nights in the same numbers as men. So I think that there's this expectation that where there's not enough women to invest in, they're just not where you expect to see them. They are probably at a different party, the parties we're seeing, but they're not at the party you think they should be at. And there's also the warm referral network. So investors prefer that someone's introduced you to them. Right. So that therefore makes it very dependent on you to have that network or to work that network. And there was one VC firm on their website, it goes, well, if you've gotten a warm introduction and you've connected to us and, you know, we're going to talk to you, and it goes on. And it's like, then, you know, we'll talk to you. And I'm like, that doesn't mean I have a good business. That just means I'm a stalker.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah.
I have stalked you
I
religiously.
network a lot. I socialize a lot. I stalk
is
you.
my business solid? Maybe, maybe not. But I have worked on it. Now, that's a good thing too, because you're very focused. But also, is that the right way? And so I think there's the typical way that investors look for women. Women aren't necessarily where they're looking. And so I think that there's a huge opportunity to look at the investment ecosystem. But that's a whole other podcast.
Yeah, no, it is. It is. And
the other thing, too, that we encounter a lot is that there is this perception that investing in female founders is riskier. I think we were at a panel once and, they asked me a question and said, what are some other capital instruments that that investors could take advantage of to invest in female founders? And I looked at him and I said, I don't want other forms of capital. I want the normal kinds of capital that other, founders get. Equity, right? We want that. We don't want, debt instrument. I mean, it is not right. But for a early stage startup, right? You want what is available for other startups. We are not riskier.
Yeah,
it's just
it's not an alternative investment, right?
Exactly. And so that for us has been just such a interesting conversation.
And just to round that out, because just in terms of if anyone's a female founder looking for money, the other key issue is prevention versus promotion questions. And the research shows through London Business School and TechCrunch, when they've done studies, that when men are asked more promotion-based questions, which mean you answer like fulfilling the dream. It's like, how quickly will you hit this market? I'm going to hit it so fast, right? Where women are asked risk-based questions. So what's in your way to entering that market? And therefore, you're having to be risk mitigation. And so the research shows that when you answer in a risk mitigation question, like in the manner of risk mitigation, you are less likely to bring on funding. And so they redid the research, made it gender neutral, and it comes down to the fact that it's how you answer those questions. So if anyone is looking for funding, always think about the way they've asked you a question and always answer in a promotion-based model. Like, be very positive and really think about how you're going to achieve that versus defaulting to the risk-based answer, because women are typically asked that more, and the difference in funding is quite substantial.
That's really interesting, because it almost, the spin is, from the person asking the question, it's why shouldn't I invest versus why should I invest almost. Looking for a reason not to versus looking for a reason to invest. Yeah. Interesting.
A whole nother podcast, Rasheed.
A whole nother podcast.
We have a few topics. You could record with
have us back already.
So what is it about your backgrounds and experience that makes you guys qualified to provide this education? And what was it about combining your individual experiences that do you think that together you could provide a solution?
So I think, look, you could look at our academic backgrounds. You could look at our professional qualifications, Nicole in management consulting, me in finance, right? But the reality is, I think that we're both, the reason why we are uniquely qualified to solve this problem is that we are obsessed with solving the gender, wealth, and investing gap. And as I said, once you see this problem, you cannot unsee it. And I think Nicole and I, we've both, in our respective kind of roles and what we've done in the last sort of decade, we've been so close working with women on their money in a variety of different ways. So, Nicole has her business. I actually co-founded a nonprofit in Hong Kong focused on, women and money. And so seeing women, uniquely struggling through these challenges, women need a space to be able to, work through this together and help each other and support each other on this journey. But in that journey, where you're seeing it very up close, you also saw, I was seeing that, there's a whole world of stakeholders in society that need to be engaged with women. It's such a deep-seated issue in society, right? That it's not just, you have to be hearing it from your friends, your family, your company, your government. You need to be hearing it from everybody in society. And that is why, for us, it was really important for us to launch Sophia as a B2B platform, because we want to, really be speaking to the stakeholders, right? In banking and in business that will really help change the game for women and their money.
I love that answer. I love the word obsession, and I can feel the obsession.
I know,
in the way that you answered the question. So let's talk about the system. What is it about the system as it exists today that isn't serving women? And for our audience here and online who may be hearing the term gender wealth and investing gap for the first time, what is the gender wealth and investing gap? Do we have any stats around it? Do we have any numbers around it? I mean, we talked a little bit about the amount of investment women get, but in terms of women investing, what does that look like?
So the gender wealth and investing gap simply is really that women aren't investing at the same rates as men are investing at, right? So let's look at the macro picture. Women live longer on average by 5+ years, right? Women, don't invest early. They don't invest often enough. Women are taking the career breaks. They are doing the unpaid care, elder and home care. And so, by the way, by the time...
More money in cash,
right? Invest less. They're also, by the way, stats show, deferring long-term financial planning to their spouse upon marriage. And so what's happening is women are retiring with minimum 25% less wealth than men. And this actually widens further at further levels of seniority. So it is really important to be investing early and often and have this embedded, actually. So I think this is, so that's why we are obsessed with this, because women are actually afraid, and stats show this too, that women are very afraid that their retirement savings are not going to be sufficient to cover their lifespan, right? And we've been talking about this a lot, like this financial longevity, right? You want to make sure that you're not going to be struggling in your, in your 80s, 90s, 100s. We are all, by the way, going to live to 100. And really, we want to make sure that that is a quality lifespan, right? And so your financial planning, your financial well-being needs to be front and center in that process. So that's why we are obsessed with the gender wealth and investing gap.
And if you think about that minimum, say, extra 5 years women are living, and then you tie that back into the fact that, over, I think it's like 86% of women defer long-term investment making to their partner on marriage, you're making an assumption, you're depending on someone that they are doing the right thing by you so that those extra 5 years are being covered. And that secondly, even the period before they may pass before you, they've, made sure that investment-wise, you're going to have the lifestyle that you're expecting, whatever, as a couple or as a family you're expecting, right? Or as an individual you're expecting. And as a couple or family. But I mean, this is the thing. This is why I think there's also a lot of fear, because if you don't know, right? And so I know we're going to talk about goal planning and things like that, but you need to be part of this conversation. So for us, even when we talk about the investing gap, part of it's just being part of the conversation, right? It doesn't matter who presses the investment button, but it matters if you're part of that conversation and part of that decision making, and kind of have a sense of what's going to be there and what's being, what we're doing to get there. And so that's really key, is that you need to be part of this. So that's why we keep coming back to, we focus on women, but we really focus on this inclusivity, because many of us are in either relationships in different ways that involve money, and we need to be part of that conversation and not shut out of it, whether by choice or just because we're too busy or we're worried about, maybe we don't have the knowledge to be involved, and so we don't get involved.
And is that what you mean when you say the system is not serving women?
There's more.
Let's talk about the system then, because it'd be good to dive into what the fundamental issues are with the system as it exists today.
Well, okay, we're not here to system bash. I think let's think about this, right? Like, women weren't in the workforce at the same rates that men are, right? So historically, men were the natural customer avatar, right? Still today, in many instances. And so, women were just not targeted for financial services. And so that's one way the system has not been serving women, because women actually have tremendous financial needs, and it's through the life cycle, right? And it's all the way from, first career, investment support, through that, sandwich generation where you are actually caring for your children, but you're also taking care of your maybe your widowed mom or your parents, right? You're maybe dealing with chronic illness, life changes, divorce possibly, right? So you are dealing with a tremendous array of life in your life, right? Life cycle kind of phases. And so there's actually a tremendous opportunity to serve women's needs in this way. But the financial system is really not responding to that in a sufficient way, bearing in mind that women are going to be controlling 60% of the world's wealth. So I think there's that's one thing. And we always talk about this, where we don't know that you need, specifically products that target women. No, actually the servicing of women's financial needs to change. And that's where the system's not working. I think the other thing that we would say is that, none of us were taught how to manage our money, right? If you didn't have parents who were teaching you from a young age, you just are, shooting in the dark and figuring this out yourself as an adult, right? We say it is a life skill. It's like learning to swim, right? You need to learn this. This needs to be taught in schools. And the stat from Cambridge University is that children as young as 7 years old are already quite aware of money. I guess it's like money attitudes at home, right? So those are already set by age 7. And so there's a real opportunity to bring that into schools and curriculum. So there's a huge system out there that we're hoping is going to change, and we're hopeful.
And that's what makes it so intimidating, right? Because you get to a point in life where you want to make these decisions and you don't have the foundational knowledge or the training, the teaching, as you said, from school.
Well, and I think going back to that customer avatar as well, is that it's always been men because they've been typically the breadwinners, possibly opening the account. Women might be in a supplementary account, so there's even a lack of equality in terms of even the way your bank account might be structured. But what you're also seeing, all of this information that we deliver, and we talk to the banks about this, is already on the bank's websites, right? So if you think about, if you go, there's already a lot of financial content out there, right? But the reality is we do a lot of research on how do you market to women? How do women engage with information? How do they make decisions? How do they want to lean into a conversation to form a decision? And there is a real opportunity to lean into the way that women engage and work towards making decision-making, particularly around money. And that's just not happening. And so in terms of the system, this is where we've been working with banks. We've worked with a number of large global banks. And the real great engagement with us is that we're talking to them, how do we make this tailored and focused towards women and put them front and center of the discussion. And so that's really what's been driving, I think, our opportunity and the interest in what we're offering.
It's interesting to me because I just cannot see anyone going on a bank website to learn how to invest.
Yes, and and
like,
actually,
that's when they come to us.
Yes, and we have an annual survey we do with hundreds of women across the globe.
Yeah.
And the feedback constantly is we do not want to receive financial education from our financial provider.
Yeah.
We want it from a third party.
Yeah.
And all the research is showing that. And so because we are financial educators, we're not financial planners, we're not financial advisors, we don't offer products, we're here to talk to you about what's right for you. Yeah. And we do that through education. We also do that through coaching. So we do money coaching sessions as well, where you have the opportunity to do one-to-one or group conversations that fit in with your education that really together activate, all the research shows that if you combine them, you can nearly activate 65% of women's cash into investments. And that's a major opportunity. And so that's where we're really focused on bringing that together.
I hadn't thought about it in that sense, but if I get an email from a bank offering me something, I delete it straight off because there's just no trust there, right?
Yeah.
There isn't. They're trying to sell me a product. Yep. What are they making out of this?
Yeah.
Whereas if it comes from a third party that's actually focused on women investing, then it's obviously going to come across very, very, very differently. That's really interesting. I was also thinking about accessibility to investing today versus when I bought my first stock and a friend introduced me to a stockbroker. I was living in the US, and this tall man with a briefcase and a suit turned up, and I was in jeans and a t-shirt, and even for me it was intimidating, you know, and he was like, you can open an account here, you just have to fill in these forms and I can start buying stocks for you.
Yeah.
And today you can be online and buying stocks in 5 minutes.
Yes. Yeah.
You know?
Yes.
And so the world has changed.
The technology is there, but we often talk about this mindset versus methods, right? So if you think about it, all these tools are out there for you to do. And what's great is now there's less barriers to do that. But it's still, you're already hesitating. Oh, he's turned up, I decided, but what am I going to invest in? There's that whole education and mindset piece around, like, do I trust you? Are you showing me the things that are right for me? Or I don't know if I buy them. Well, should I have bought those ones?
Yeah.
I don't know. Which one do I buy? Like, there's this whole world of, you know, not knowing where to start, you know, overwhelm in terms of how many ways you can invest and set up a portfolio and set goals. And so really being clear on that is really important. You know, everyone has massive to-do lists, right? So if you are in a relationship where you've handed over long-term investment decision-making to your partner, well, then that's just going to stay at the bottom of your to-do list. So how do you move that back up and be part of that conversation when you have 10,000 other things to do in life, and fear of losing money and drives so many of us, right? We all work really hard for our money. How do you control that? So that's where we really look at this we sometimes call it mindset tech. You know, how are you looking at the way we think about money, and how do we make it easy to get started? How do we make it easy to set goals? How do we make it easy to then actually take action is really at the DNA of what we're trying to build from day one.
Can we dive into the mindset piece?
Yes, yes,
because
please.
I think it's such a big part of it, right?
And we look, the research shows also that, and this is not just for women, this is for everybody, right? There are two main things that drive your financial decision making, right? It's half your mindset and half your method, right? Okay. When I say method, that's your financial planner, your bank account, your investment account, right? Your neobank, your robo-advisor, whatever it is. Men get to the method faster. Right? Women are still stuck at that mindset piece because, again, women haven't been investing, right? So there's this desire to, you know, to talk about it, to you know, be more risk aware in the financial decisions they're making. And as Nicole said, we refer to ourselves as mindset tech. We are that platform that is really helping you navigate those financial decisions to help you get to the method faster, right? And I think a lot of women, for example, are quite hesitant to even start a conversation with a financial advisor. And why is that? It's because you get there and you're like, well, what are they going to sell me? Right? Back to this impartiality, this need for impartiality. Like, you want to make sure that you know what you are being sold. You know why it fits in your life and in your portfolio and what it's doing. And you want to know what you are paying them, right? All those things around transparency. So it is so important to be armed for that conversation. And that is exactly what we do, right? We are not there to sell you financial products. We're there to help you suss it out. We're here to help you navigate that journey so that you are making an informed decision with financial clarity.
So how does someone get started? When your company brings you in, right? And they put you in front of a room, I presume, and there's a lot of people there who are obviously there because they're interested in the topic.
Yep.
They're trying to figure out how to get started with the little money they've saved, or they're trying to change the conversation at home, or they're thinking, I don't have enough to even start this. Where does someone start this journey? What do you normally advise?
So I think people don't really think of themselves as investors. But, you know, if you have a retirement account, a pension account, and you're contributing to it and you're maxing out your employee
so your
match,
NPF, your 401k,
your 401k, you know, you are an investor, right? You already have a little pot of that is being invested for your retirement, right? And so the first step we always say is, do you know what that money is being invested in, right? Do you know what you're investing in? Have you changed your setting?
Did you choose the default?
Did you choose,
Everyone
does it
chooses
match
default,
your
right?
lifestyle?
Yeah.
Does it match your views on risk,
Yeah.
right? So we always say that is the best place to start. What do you have right now, right?
Yeah.
So, you are an investor if you've got, that pension account. The next step is to really then start understanding your financial goals, right? So financial goal setting is the 101, right? That is where you start because we love this quote from Oprah. And she didn't say it, by the way, with reference to financial planning, but we use it for that. Oprah said,
Oprah.
We all love Oprah. Oprah said something like, if you knew exactly where you were going to go, wouldn't you plan for that exactly? Yeah. So financial goal setting is not, I want to retire at 85. I mean, that's part of it, but it's where, how, is it sunny? Do you have dogs in the garden? Like, what are you doing for fun? What's your health coverage like? It has to be very granular, right? And so that is what financial clarity is. That's the goal setting. That's where it starts. So I think financial goal setting is really where you start. Yeah. And then you've got to then start understanding, well, if these are your goals, well, what are the tools you want to use to make that a reality, right? And that's where you start understanding, your risk tolerance, right? What is risk tolerance? It's your appetite to take risk. How much risk you're willing to take or how much money you are okay to lose when it comes to an investment, right? So understanding your appetite to risk. You will probably, when you open a bank account or an investment account, fill out this thing called a risk tolerance questionnaire. And we have one as well with Sophia, and we go through those with our clients. And let me tell you, the clarity that happens when we go through it with them is because finally you understand, okay, this is where I am in my risk tolerance. That then tells you what are the things, what kind of assets you want to be buying, right? To basically invest so that your beautiful retirement, your awesome retirement can be a reality, right? So I think those are some of the ways to start investing. And then, you have to then make it real, right? Figure out, well, which asset classes do you know about? What's your investment knowledge? And what do you want to learn more about? And then we've got to figure out your first 3 to 5 steps. And it can be micro steps. It can be research. What is an ETF? It can be as micro as that.
It's daunting though. I mean, even you saying all that is really, really daunting, right? So you're taking home a salary every month. You're spending on your rent. You're spending on your living expenses. You might be saving for your tax, or you might be waiting for your bonus to pay your tax.
Yep.
And then you want to add investing to this. You don't know where to start. You have some kind of retirement plan that the government and your company together are doing for you.
Yep.
And I would guess that most people have no idea what's happening with their retirement plan.
Yeah. And I think alongside with all of that is the timeframes.
Yeah.
Because there's short, medium, long.
Yep.
And so you've got to make sure you just don't lump that into something that seems a big pot of effort, right? As what we really want to make things easier. And I mean, Christine talked about micro steps. If you were to think about, in addition to all of those elements, do you have all just your fundamentals in place in terms of you understand your debt position as well, you understand your savings? It makes it easy for you to start looking at that investing, but also what's a shorter to medium to long-term goals, because also your risk for each of them is different. And so it's setting some of those. I think setting goals is key, understanding your risk and then thinking, well, just how much money do I have and what can I allocate? I mean, that's, if you just start with those simple steps, it's, you have so much and it's really just working out where can I direct that. And if you're overwhelmed by the long term, start with a short term goal and take an action around that. And so we do a lot. We have money action plans. We do money action plan sessions where we actually walk through a lot of these elements to get you to how do you set a couple of steps to achieve a goal. We also do things like life visions exercises where it's like envisaging what would be your ideal life and rolling that back into, okay, where are you today and where's maybe a realistic place you can be at a point in time and making that feel manageable is really key. And that's what we really focus on in all the ways that we work with our customers and their employees.
We really want to help women rewrite this relationship with money. And, it starts with being inspired, right? It's being inspired about your future, your life. And so when you're inspired about, the life you're going to be living, it helps you take those first steps. And so I think for us, it's really about those micro steps, right? There's getting you nudged on that journey. And so that's really what we're trying to do.
And any amount is not too small.
Yes.
It really, whatever you have, you can put towards an investment opportunity. So don't think I need, hundreds of thousands or whatever number might be in your mind, maybe just divide that by 10, and think I can start with that number. It's just something, because you will learn from that. And if you find that you are really risk averse, you can take those baby steps to build confidence, because that's all cumulative knowledge. And that's the big thing about managing your money. It's an ongoing experience and learning experience.
So no amount is too small.
No amount is too small.
There are so many ways, and you alluded to this earlier, right? The way that investing is being democratized and being more accessible. There are so many different ways to invest, right? And so I think having enough money, that's no longer a barrier. And so it's a really exciting time to be investing, because there's so many options for us to be doing that.
Yeah, I'm curious about something. We had, and you may know, Liz Bradford was here a few months ago, and we were talking about the pillars of well-being. And, I was expecting the discussion to be physical, mental, emotional and connected well-being. And she brought up financial well-being. And I asked her, because I've spoken to her twice about this, and I asked her, I said, the first time I spoke to you, financial well-being wasn't mentioned. And she said, yeah, but as I've been working with my clients more and more, this is where a lot of the stress is coming from. And I kind of think about it in relation to what you said about setting goals for yourself. And also the pressure that you can get of trying to keep up with people around you. Someone's got the new watch, someone's got the new Birkin bag, someone's bought the new convertible. And
we were talking about how much debt they might be in.
But you never know how much debt they might be in. But it's so visible sometimes around you. And I feel like that idea of, and you use the word granular, setting those granular goals can help you feel like you're actually progressing.
Yes.
On the journey that you've set yourself. And keep you away from trying to keep up with the Joneses.
Yeah. And I think there's two elements to financial well-being. One is what you're talking about, this keeping up with the Joneses. Everyone seems to have everything. And it's the reality of the goals and understanding, what do I have? And actually just prioritizing, because actually everyone has different ways they want to spend their money. And the way I want to spend it, you want to spend it, you prioritize what's important to you is very different. So someone could be spending a lot of money and it looks great, but actually is that the way you would want to do it? So yes, it looks very impressive, but do you care that much about it? Yes, you're in this setting, which it looks great, but it really comes down to where's the value for you and aligning that with your goals. So I think that, you really have to be honest with yourself around that. And then if you want something that's maybe aspirational, then you then start setting a plan according to that. I think that 100%. And that's where looking at putting your money to work is key.
Yeah.
Right. And understanding the investment fundamentals. And we talk a lot about that in terms of, compound interest, diversification, liquidity, all these things that come together to help you set a plan to grow towards building your wealth. I think the other thing around financial well-being that is being acknowledged, particularly for women, is that you really can't have the physical and emotional well-being if you can't afford to go to the doctor, if you don't have the right insurance in place to cover your costs, if you're worried about opening credit cards that are going to keep you awake at night because how am I going to pay for that? So I think that there is both spectrums. I think that there's a real need to understand that we have life events, and we talk a lot about this, and Christina alluded to earlier, we have different life events, and we really need to be starting to better map our health and our wealth during those life events and preparing for those as well, so that we can make sure we're getting the care we need, and that we're not having sleepless nights, which all the research shows that employees spend up to 3 hours a week on financial admin. So it's nearly half a day when people are financially stressed working on their financial admin in the office. So there's a real need to really help people feel financially well as they're more productive at work. All the research shows you've got high retention rates when you're supporting them. So there's both elements of, not wanting to always feel like I'm behind and I'm losing out. So yes, investing is a way to get there. And a really good thing would be to talk to maybe the people you admire and say, how are you doing this? Ask the question, who's your financial planner? Right? Like, ask what they're doing. But on the other end, really be looking at making sure you are always being taken care of in terms of your financial well-being. So your health and your both physical, emotional, and physical is managed well.
And I also really want to add here that I think, whenever we speak to, our clients and their employees, and a lot of them are banks, right? There's this like shame that a lot of us, maybe who work in the banking industry might feel that, oh gosh, I'm really behind and I'm not even investing and I work for a bank. And I think the real point I want to make here is that we have to acknowledge that we all start from a different place when it comes to our money, right? Maybe we had a more stable, financial situation growing up. Maybe some of us have had to contribute more to family finances than others. Maybe you had student debt that you are saddled with and that you are still paying off, right? So I think that it is really important, and this does point to the whole well-being piece, right? That you are progressing on your own journey and taking care of yourself in all those different pillars of well-being, especially in your financial well-being. So it's like you're not competing with anyone else. You're making your life better for yourself. It's progress for yourself.
Yeah. So if people are looking to set goals, do you have any sort of frameworks or that you can share broadly what people should be thinking about if they're going to go home or tomorrow sit down and say, I'm going to start setting myself some goals? What are the first few questions they should be asking themselves?
So when it comes to goal setting, I mean, Nicole was saying earlier, it's really about time horizons, right? What are your short, your medium, your long priorities, right? Because then when you're able to kind of organize it that way, then you can figure out what are the strategies that you're going to be able to employ to achieve those, right? The other thing is, obviously you want to be aspirational in your goals, but they should also be achievable. And I think we have a framework that we've developed in-house, which we call our Life Visions exercise. And for us, that is a very inspiring way to think about your goals, because again, it's helping you think about how can I make this a really inspiring process for myself? It's not just sitting in front of an Excel spreadsheet and, kind of tapping in some numbers.
It's not like that.
No. Ours, everyone leaves our Life Visions exercise feeling so inspired and ready to go, right? And seriously, I mean, we say this because we ourselves do it for ourselves. So, I think it's really about doing those things and then going through a process of saying, okay, once I've set my time horizons, I've, figure out, kind of across the different quadrants of my life, what my goals look like. Then it's about what are the strategies and what are the tools that I then need to use to make those things a reality. And so that's a kind of a shortcut way to get started. But, of course, we have a variety of different kind of ways as well, little kind of reflections, check-ins, ways for you to get going on those goals.
And it's different for someone in their 20s and someone in their 50s as well in many ways.
Yeah.
What are the most common mistakes you see people making?
Not starting.
Yeah.
Not starting.
Not starting. Yeah. I mean, that would be, I think also understanding, investing also leans back into sometimes make sure you've got your foundations that, to maximize the money you have you looked at the way that you're spending? Are you making sure that you're not having excess finance charges? Are you doing a lot of things that make sure that you've got the maximum amount that can be had in your household to start investing? And we often talk about, it's not timing the market, it's time in the market. So we were actually just talking to someone about investing today. And they were like, well, I don't know if I want to do stock investing. It feels like it's gambling. And then once I get starting, I'll be like, buy, sell, buy, sell, buy, sell. And we were like, it's not like that. It's time in the market.
Yep.
And he's like, I think there's a bubble. And we're like, it's not about, you can never time the market. And if you are waiting to time the market, you will never get it right. You're unlikely get that right. It's just starting. And really being and consistency, I think, and coming back and always reflecting on your goals, right? So I think that they're the things you should be getting right. Yeah. But it isn't this concept of I'm going to be buying and selling all the time, because that kind of day trading mentality is
That's
not
really
at all
not
what we're talking about. And it's around making those right investment choices that suit what you want to do, and understanding some of those myths as well. So, encouraging people not to have that gambling mentality.
I think the other thing is that, people think that the other mistake is that, that it's so hard, right? And that's this myth. And the reality is, okay, investing is not easy. There's obviously an entire industry that is built around investing professionals who invest your money professionally. However, it is not hard to start. And that is our point, right? Yeah. It is a lifelong journey in educating yourself. It is not hard to start. Like literally nothing is rocket science except for rocket science. And that is, and by the way, that is my favorite thing to say to myself.
Because we'll clip that.
I believe we can all teach ourselves anything. I can teach myself, we can all of us, right? We can all teach ourselves how to invest. It's not about being good at math. It's not about, because that's another, myth we get a lot is, oh, I'm not good at math. I'm not going to invest. No, it's not about math. I mean, basic math, but you don't have to be, this PhD in math. By the way, math PhDs don't even deal with numbers. I just want to tell you that. They get econ people to calculate the bill. But it's really about, it's understanding that it's not hard to start. So do it. Get going.
One thing you said earlier, which caught my attention, was you mentioned day trading. And I found it interesting and funny for a couple of reasons. One is I feel like men are more likely to day trade. Because I feel like it comes up, when I get together with my friends, we talk about football, we talk, first thing, how's the family? Okay, done. Let's move on. Everyone's good. And then it's football or sports, and then it's someone sharing some amazing stock that they purchased or some amazing deal that they've just done and they've made lots of money. And I think that pressure comes from that sometimes. It's like, all these guys are doing this stuff and I'm not.
But they're not telling you the money they've lost.
No, exactly.
Right.
It's like going to the horse races, right? You never talk about the bets you didn't deliver on. So when women do invest, do they invest differently from men in general? Because the stats that I've seen, less women invest, but the women who do invest tend to do better than men because they have longer time horizons and they probably don't touch it as often.
Yeah. And I think also women are looking, and Christine referenced this earlier, 2 times more likely to invest with ESG factors in mind. So they're looking to invest to make impact. And that I think is a very different model around how you're approaching. And I think this is part of the challenge if you think about the way that you hear about the stock market, you hear about ETFs, you hear about all these investment opportunities, impact and different ESG factors aren't really there as part of that story. We often say, I think we find this is why women like to do angel investing, because you get to learn about a business, you get to learn about the founder. Women are building impact-driven businesses. So there's a real story around that, and there's a feel like I understand what's going on. Is it like 12,500 ETFs or something out there? I mean, and if you're interested in, the climate or something like that, like how do you work out which one is maybe suited to what you're interested in making impact with your money? It's very difficult to navigate that. And I think that's also, it's a very black hole of what's in there without really the knowledge. And so I think that to us is really important is, how do we tell stories around what you can invest in? Both being inspired by other women, because people really are inspired by hearing other women's stories, and just making it all seem much more accessible, right, in terms of, and meaningful I mean, this is your money. You want to put it to work. You want to get a return, but women often want more than a return.
And just to your point also about, the whole, hanging out with the dudes, talking about all these things and money, women actually don't at all talk about money. I think whenever I'm with a group of friends, I always ask people, like, when was the last time you got together with your girlfriends at lunch or dinner or drinks and you talked about your portfolios? And it's like silencio. So I think we want to be really intentional about, there's so many societal things that have caused the gender wealth and investing gap. And so it is an onion, right? You gotta unlearn so many of these cultural things that we have, continued, right? And so it's about being intentional with your conversations, whether it's talking to your friends, your family, your partner, your kids. It's about, having at least some conversation about your money, and it not in an unhealthy way, by the way, right?
Yeah.
In a very sort of, hey, what are you doing? What do you think about this market? And I want to know, can you teach me something? I mean, I had a banker friend of mine, and literally she advises, people for a living, but not in sort of liquid products. But she literally said, Christine, you posted on LinkedIn about these UCITS, ETFs. I need to know more. Can we please have lunch and a money date? And literally, it's my friends coming to me now because I talk about money dates all the time.
Yeah.
We do all the time.
Yeah.
And so it's a thing, right?
Yeah.
We didn't invent it, obviously, but we want to perpetuate this, right? Have money dates with anyone and everyone that you can. So I think that's really one way to change the game for women, that we need to be talking about our money.
So a couple of things you said, and I want to just, for anyone who doesn't know, what is angel investing and what is an ETF?
Okay, so angel investing is that early stage investing, and that's kind of how we got to know each other, right? Because that's when you've got, a startup that's looking to bring in an investor, but they may just not have enough financial statements in place or enough financial traction or data for the business to be interesting to a venture capital, right? Or a fund that is, much more of an institutional nature. So therefore, you're looking for someone to give you a small amount of money to help you grow to the next stage. And often they're angels. And that's kind of, I think, you're like my angel, you've helped me.
Yeah.
And, that could be anywhere from $10,000 to much, much more. And what you often find is some angels will come together and form syndicates. And so clubbing together to invest in smaller companies. And really at that point, you're investing in the founder. You're investing in the execution or the industry expertise, the execution abilities of that founder.
And the vision.
The vision, their ability to deliver on that, and kind of what they've done so far. But there's so much more uncertainty and risk at that stage, and you're taking such a smaller portion of of shares of that company. So it's an equity investment versus as you progress and grow, you might be raising more money and therefore they're taking a larger stake in your business. Now, you could still have majority control. I think women I would often have that, well, if I take in an investor, I lose control of my business. And it's like, no, there's minority shareholders who will take a stake in your business. You are still in control. Yes, you now have someone you're reporting to, you're talking to, but actually if you have a great relationship, that can be a really positive impact on your business. And they're nearly not working for you, but they're working with you or helping you. So there is that real element there. So
then you're investing in someone who's just starting out. You're taking a small share in their business. Mm-hmm. You might be advising them, you might not be, you might just be backing them.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But it's harder to get that money back in the short term.
That's right.
You're investing for the long term, as opposed to investing in a public listed company or an ETF, which is a basket of publicly traded
and I think
stocks.
Yes, absolutely. And I think the other thing to note about angel investing is that, when you think about it, Nicole said it's very risky, right? I think let's not forget that. When you think about 9 out of 10 companies, fail, right? It is a very risky investment. So you really have to make sure that it matches your risk tolerance. We keep going back to your appetite for risk. It has to absolutely match your risk tolerance.
And how much do you have? A small proportion of that could be allocated to angel investing, right? Like it's really thinking about, you could lose it all. So you have to be willing to lose all of that money firstly. But if you're going to see a return, that could be in 5-10 years.
Yeah.
So that money is locked away or lost. right, for a long period of time. So it's, if you think about portfolio building blocks, it could be one, but it could also not be one. It could be like Jenga, it gets pulled out.
It's probably not the priority, right?
Exactly.
It's not, we don't call it a portfolio building block. It's probably something that, if you have a very small allocation in your portfolio and you have some cash to spare. So I think that's how you want to think about it. So what's an ETF? You mentioned ETF, exchange traded funds. Now let's not get freaked out about jargon. We are completely not into jargon as well. So it is just a much easier way of investing. So let's just say you want to buy a stock, right? Instead of buying, a bank stock, one stock of HSBC or whatever bank stock, right? You want to be buying a basket of bank stocks. So instead of, buying one stock, but by buying one unit of this basket, you're actually buying a whole basket of bank stocks or whatever stocks. So it could be, there are a lot of different baskets, right? Different ETFs. You could be tracking an entire stock index, right? You could be buying ETFs tracking the entire Hang Seng index, or in the US, the S&P 500 index, right? That's 500 of the largest companies in the US. So, you could do, solar ETFs. You could do bank ETFs, tech ETFs, all kinds of ETFs. I've invested in ESG ETFs. You could do gender lens ETFs, right? So there are a variety of ETFs. And, ETFs are just a great way to start investing. Again, not investment advice. We are financial educators.
Right.
But ETFs are a great way to start. Why? Because you're basically diversified, right? By just buying one unit of this. And it drives the cost down as well. So for example, you might look at the price of a particular tech stock. Like, wow, it's actually really expensive to buy one stock.
I can't even buy one share.
You can't even buy one share.
Yeah.
And you're like, well, but maybe I can buy a tech ETF where that is included, right? It's called a constituent, right? It's one of maybe the top 10 holdings, right? And so that's another way to gain exposure. So that is an ETF.
And you can also sell it much more easily. So it'll be much more liquid.
You can buy it today and sell it tomorrow. But
it's like,
we don't want to talk about day trading.
No. But if there's a need for liquidity, it's there.
It's there.
So I was sitting with my in-laws the other day, and one of them said to me that their parents used to say, if in doubt, don't. Which I thought from being an entrepreneur who's kind of invested my life savings in my businesses, I was like, well, it's a bit late for that. How do you guys think about risk when it comes to investing, and what are there frameworks around that you could kind of share?
So, firstly, you need to know your own appetite for risk. We've talked about understanding, taking a risk tolerance questionnaire. So that's very important. I think for us, it's so transformational when we take our coachees through a risk tolerance exercise, because so many things actually drive your appetite for risk. And I think one concept, it's things like, your age, your investment experience, do you have any debt? Are you supporting your family members, right? Like, is your income stable or is it not stable? So many things. And increasingly, and I think this should be included in risk tolerance, is your physical health, right? Because health is wealth. Right? Yeah. Those are partners that need to be considered. And so I think that is a really important thing to consider as well. So I think so when you do risk tolerance, it's really important to understand where you stand. Do you have a conservative risk tolerance? Do you have a moderate, or do you have an aggressive risk tolerance? And I tell you, we love sitting with our clients, and they're like, "Oh wow, I'm a moderate. I thought I was a conservative, right?" And just seeing that
made them think through so many more elements that they thought they didn't realize were part of forming risk, right? They're just worried about losing money, which everyone's worried about.
And that is part, by the way, that is a question too. Like, what would happen? What would you do if the stock market dropped, 15, 20%? What would you do? Right? That is a question in a risk tolerance questionnaire. But I think it's really important because, now that you have unlocked this knowledge of yourself and you understand what drives your risk tolerance, then you're able to make better decisions about, kind of what are the things you're going to be investing into, right? Yeah. And then when you pair that with, goal setting and all these important things on your investing journey, it is just empowering, and it unlocks, your path to creating wealth.
Yeah. And also, I think that kind of saying is also it depends on what you want to do, right? Because some things you have a lower risk tolerance because there's actually a need to be conservative in the way you approach your money. But other things you could have a bit of a much more aggressive approach, whether that's a longer time frame or, there's a push to get to a certain goal. It's not always the same for everything. So it's okay to move around those. But I know I certainly had family members that would say, if you can't sleep at night,
Yeah, you're taking too much risk.
Too much risk, right?
Yeah.
And so, yeah.
You guys have spoken about women investing in women. Why is this circular effect so powerful? And how do you guys aim to close the loop? Not just teaching investing, but perhaps where capital gets deployed and encouraging women to invest in women?
I think that's, again, that's our origin story, right? And not to recap it, but essentially the problem that we wanted to solve initially was, well, how do we get more women, how do we get more money in the hands of women founders? Yeah. And our initial answer was, well, we're going to teach them how to be angel investors.
Okay.
But that wasn't the answer, because when you peel the onion, you look at and this was my experience, right? Looking around the room, well, there aren't a lot of women angels. And why is that? And that's because women aren't creating wealth, right? And that's when we said, we really need to help women create wealth, right? And that's where we had to pull the onion even more. And that is why it is so important, right? That's the goal, to help women invest in other women founders and remake our world. But actually, it's also to help them make more choices. Yeah. And that's not the only goal. It's so many other goals. And when women have money, there are so many holistic things that women do with their money. And we talked about that earlier, but it is just so powerful to then have that circular effect.
And I think it's also, if you are in a partnership where the other person is doing the investing, the more the more you can influence or be part of that and actually have it going to things that you're interested in or, things that you've heard about, right? Versus just being a passive part of that discussion. And I think that also influences the whole pot, not just, I know we talk a lot about women and that is, talking to women about the money, but that's a wider pot that then gets influenced, because then you're looking at, bigger portfolios or a wider portfolio, and you're talking about, well, how are we investing that? And you're part of that conversation and driving where I want to see that, what impact do I want to make? And I think that there's that real opportunity. Knowledge can even make that happen, right? Knowledge can really give you the confidence to be asking questions that might change the direction of your current portfolio even.
Yeah. It's not an easy discussion to start, because we fall into roles when we get into relationships in all kinds of areas.
Yep.
And those discussions can be difficult, but I like the idea that knowledge can change that a little bit.
I was having a conversation with a client, male client, actually, and after I was, talking all the stats and our Sophia, manifesto, he looked at me and he said, that's a really interesting observation, because my wife is actually she studied this, but yet once we had kids, we got into this role, these gender stereotype roles, and I am managing the money, and she's much better at this than I am. Why am I doing it? And that's exactly the point, right? It's what we need to be both part of that discussion, and it doesn't have to be a stereotype. It's honestly just a partnership, right? A partnership in not just investing, but it's in a partnership in your entire financial life.
Yeah. And I think it's also being part of that discussion to get there. We always come back to, it doesn't matter who presses that button. And part of it's being part of the conversation, right? So, together you move forward. If that's those roles are there, and it's setting time maybe to talk about it, but do it at a time when you won't be busy. There's no one running around. You like wine, have a wine. Like what have you seen? And maybe if you want to be able to change those relationships, so how do we change behaviors? It's like injecting something different. So maybe there's an article you want to chat about, and you're not talking about your own story, but maybe you're talking about someone else's story. Like, did you see this in the news? And you just chat about that, and you start already changing your conversation around money, without having to be around, well, I've done this. And you're like, well, now I don't think it's right.
It's almost finding the way to open the door,
exactly right. And it doesn't have to be just pointing fingers. It's just more around together learning more. Or if, say, your partner has become much more educated on this, it's like, great, let's have a conversation, because we've had a lot of men in our sessions who want to talk about money at home. And, they're really excited about what we're doing as well. And together teach the children. I mean, this whole element of teaching your children about money is really a great way to frame that discussion as well. And sitting down as a family is a great way to take the pressure off one person.
I always think about that as the conversations around the dinner table. And I think they're so valuable for later in life because those things really stick. But it's interesting. I'm curious, you said about men in your sessions. How many men do you normally get in your sessions? Because I'm just looking around the room now.
Yeah.
And thank you for being here.
We are made for women. But because we have tackled the hardest demographic to engage in their financial lives, actually, we have battle tested this for everyone. So men love our sessions. So, Nicole and I love also, we do a session on money and kids. And that is an excellent way to engage men, because guess what? It's a secret way to get more financially savvy when you have to teach it to your children. Right? And so we find that that's a fantastic way in. It's a Trojan horse for family financial literacy.
Interesting. So you guys have been on this journey 5 years now. 4 years. 4 years now. Okay, 4 years now. So what has surprised you the most? You talked about peeling back the onion, but what surprised you the most?
I think there's a perception that you're like, oh, well, teach women about money, do some courses, do this, do that. I think when you are as obsessed as Nicole and I are at solving this problem, you really get granular. You really look at the data. We're very data driven in everything we do, right? We've collected over 1 million data points and insights that drive our design of everything on our platform. And what have we found? It is not an easy answer, right? And so for us, it's really being very, again, data-driven and looking at what are those micro moments that really move the needle on helping women on their money. So I think what surprised us is, wow, surprise, surprise, it's not that easy. It's not even like a headline, just do this. No, it is so much under the hood, so much research, so much looking at the data, so much A/B testing. And so I think that's why we're here today still on this journey, because we are constantly innovating on this solution.
Yeah. And it's, I think, mapping that into all this, everyone is so different and it is hard. Yet the constant we keep finding is the underlying reasons are the same in terms of the fear, the overwhelm, some of the societal, culture, from a cultural perspective, the way we behave. It's a lot of this not knowing where to start. But how do you make that personalized to you is really key. And I think that's kind of what so much of what we hear about money is so generic, and that's why you don't know. So I think for us, it's really been looking at all this data to understand so much more about the people that have gone through our courses, to really reflect, okay, you might all have some of these common fears, but actually how you're going to move forward is different, because maybe you can't have a conversation with your partner about money. Maybe you can, right? So you're already different starting there. Maybe you've got more than I have, right? Or I've still got to deal with debt, but actually I've already made 3 investments, but there's still these underlying things that are coming through. So I think that's really key for us, is using this data constantly to really reflect into what people are saying to us.
I'm going to go to audience Q&A and save my last 2 questions for the end, I think.
Hi, thank you very much for this conversation. I was actively listening to you, and I just want to share that I buy my first stocks lately. I bought S&P.
Congratulations.
And
wow.
Yeah. So it really resonates with me. And I have a question about crypto, because we didn't talk about this. And it's really something that I don't know anything about, absolutely anything. I keep hearing about it, of course. And it's a really male-dominated topic, I mean, in my opinion. So do you have any tips or anything that we should know, whether we want to invest in it or not? I guess there's no yes or no answer. It depends on each and every one of us, but at least do you have anything to say about that?
I think when you look at crypto, right? So Well, when we teach kind of asset classes, right? You've got your portfolio building blocks, right? Equity, bonds, cash. You've got your baskets of securities, ETFs, mutual funds. And then there's this whole other basket called alternatives, right? And it's basically anything that's not equities, bonds, or cash, right? So that's crypto. That's real estate. That's vintage cars. That's art. That's wine, right? So
resources.
Yeah, racehorses. Yeah,
we know someone who talks also about racehorses.
Can you buy and sell them easily?
We have a money action plan for that. So whether it's crypto or whether it's anything in the alternatives universe, I mean, you first have to start with, well, does that fit my risk tolerance, right? So again, start with your risk. Do a questionnaire, a risk tolerance questionnaire. Does this fit, right? And understand, of course, the features of crypto, pros and cons of investing in it, right? So I think and it's not whether should I buy crypto or not. It's, is it right for you? And have you done the research on understanding the pros and cons to make that determination? Does that fit with your financial goals, right? Again, it's about, is it right for you?
I think it's a really interesting answer because, Carmen, just like you, I know absolutely nothing about crypto, so I don't want to go near it. But buying an ETF feels comfortable. Buying certain stocks and spreading my risk across 20 or 30 stocks that I think are moving in the right direction feels comfortable. Doesn't mean I'm always right. That first stockbroker sold me something that I'm still holding, and it's down about 98% since I bought it. But crypto is such a gray area for me that it's like until I have the time to actually look at it, I'm just going to stay well away from it. So I think it's
and
just
also, and you mentioned the question time, right? That's the thing. How do I find the time to research this? And that's again looking at, is it a priority? And also maybe financially, if I have, looking at that risk tolerance, and if you have money, are they some money to spend? Is that aligned? And if that's, do some research and make that decision 100%.
I don't know if I'm allowed to ask this, but what kind of stuff do you guys invest in?
Oh, sure. Nicole and I answer this question all day long. And we have very different portfolios. I think, and we actually teach money mindset because it's really important to also understand, how you grew up, because that forms so much of, how your attitude to money, how you invest, and some blind spots. And I always talk about how my parents, being from the Philippines, made some real estate investments that didn't go well. And so there was the blind spot for me was my dad would always say, no, do not buy real estate, especially not in emerging markets. It's very dangerous. You will lose all your money. You can't sell when you want. And so I think that stuck with me. And that was a blind spot. And so I think, even though, of course, real estate is part of a, healthy, long-term appreciating portfolio, right? But in my head, I've always just been much more comfortable investing in the markets. And so my portfolio is a variety of, index ETFs. I have some commodities ETFs. I also invest in, some sectoral ETFs. But I also like to invest in a few single stocks that I think are of companies who, I think are going to be around the next 10, 20, 30 years, right? So, and these are not things I trade around a lot. These are just some core holdings. And so, I think thinking about, and of course, I think Sophia is an investment for me. So that's my big risk that I'm taking in my investing life, right? And so I think, those are just some of the things that I personally invest in. I also am an angel investor, right? So that's also a part of my alternatives. And actually, angel investing was an impact investing specifically was the thing that unlocked my excitement and my passion for investing. And so I think that's the other thing I would say is, other than kind of understanding kind of what are the things that, you like to invest in, I think it's important to understand what excites you about your investing journey. So that's what I invest in.
And we always have this running joke about this because growing up in Australia, Australia loves property. Australians love to invest in property. It's nearly a competitive sport, right? And so I think that has always been such a key driver for me historically. And that has certainly changed in the past few years. And that's what actually has made Sophia so interesting in all of this because, the message you said around technology changing things. Like I had my first mutual fund, I age myself here, nearly 30 years ago, 28 years ago, because I had, I had a small salary. I was just starting to work and I really wanted to buy property, but I couldn't make it fast enough. So to me, a mutual fund at that point was a way to build a deposit faster so I could then use that to buy property, right? So I was always looking at different ways to always drive into a property purchase. And I will spend 3 years researching one and, doing such a deep dive into things like this. So I think for me, property's always been such a core driver for me in terms of the way I've looked at all the other investments I've made in life, coming back into that. I think that's now even changed a little bit, because I think, I reflect back to what you said about this broker coming in, and I still remember then I could only buy, because I was living in Australia at that time, I couldn't buy into a mutual fund because I didn't have enough money to buy into an international one. So it had to be a local one. So all my options were really low. And so I had to save more to get into the next tier. And I still remember back then, and the thresholds we're talking small amounts of money, right? And I still remember that was a very restrictive exercise. And I think that's what's made it quite interesting to invest now, because technology, the information that's out there, is giving everyone the opportunity to make, borderless decisions, right? You're not always being held back by someone. You're not dependent on someone. And that's what I think I'm very passionate about for women in investing, is we can control this, right? This is our time, because all the pieces are coming together and we can be part of that. So to me, that's what's really exciting about just wider investing as well. Yeah.
I would love to hear a little bit more about, I think you had both touched a little bit on the ESG investing. And as someone who has recently moved back to Hong Kong after almost a decade away, I'm curious about the landscape for investing towards climate action as an individual consumer. And also, completely separate question, but for somebody who is curious about getting involved in angel investing, what would your advice be in terms of getting started?
So I'll tackle the angel question first, because that's just join an angel group and learn. I think I joined an angel group in 2014, and honestly, it took me such a long time to make my first investment, because I was coming from a career in looking at a Bloomberg screen, dealing in public markets. I knew nothing about the private markets and angels. So I think learning and being part of a community is a number one thing that I would recommend you do. So that's angel. So I'm an impact investor, and I think impact investing is the thing, an angel, that really unlocked my passion for investing. I think that and I teach actually a lot about impact investing. And I would say that my views have changed a little bit in terms of investing for particular positive impact. I think that when you think about climate action, right, this is a huge issue. There's so many layers, right? And there's a variety of different ways that you can actually deploy capital as a retail investor into, aspects of solving that, aspects of climate, right? Whether it's water, whether it's, nature-based solutions, whether that's energy transition, right? There's a gender piece as well in climate. There's logistics. There's so many different ways you can deploy capital in that space, whether that's, looking at ESG listed solutions, in the markets. You can look at, directly investing in ventures, that are kind of solving kind of those or have solutions around those space, mission-driven platforms, through all the way to even philanthropic capital, right? The challenge is that I think when you think about changing a deep-rooted issue, no one solution is going to fix that. So there's a concept called systems investing, which I don't know if you're familiar with, but it is such a amazing, powerful concept that has really made me rethink how I deploy my own capital, which is, you can't use the same forms of investing to change a problem. So to have positive change with your money, you need to be investing along the capital spectrum at different types of capital, using different types of capital to solve this problem. So whether that's, and of course, for a retail investor, maybe, what's available to you would be, you can look at some ETFs around a particular climate issue that you're interested in. Maybe you want to, if you want to start angel investing, maybe you want to, take a look at some particular kind of, startups in the climate tech space that you're interested in. Maybe you want to be looking at also some philanthropic capital grants around, whichever climate piece of the climate piece that you are interested in positively impacting. So I think, but I would challenge you to not just think about one type of capital or one type of action. It's really thinking along the system to change the system.
Thanks for the chat. It was really, really informative. I wanted to ask, I have been investing over a period of time, but I never know whether I'm doing a good job or not. So is there some kind of formula or some kind of CAGR that one should be aiming for? Is there some number that we should be kind of working towards, or how does one assess how we're tracking?
We get that question all the time, right? This benchmarking element, right? You want to be benchmarked either against friends or the market. And I think it depends what you're already investing in, right? In terms of understanding and doing some research around that. And then if you're looking at your broader portfolio, I think it's what Christine was talking about. You've got the different pillars. How are you spreading across those pillars? And whether you want to have a wider portfolio, again, depending on your own goals and your own risk tolerance, or if you're looking for, it really comes back into those elements, always around researching and setting around those different pillars. I think
maybe just if you are looking at like general equities, you want to be looking at, well, what are the indexes, right? How are the indexes performing, right? And how does your portfolio compare to like a general index? So that's one way to look at it. So, maybe you are invested in the S&P 500. Well, how are your ETFs performing versus like a standard like how has the S&P 500 return, right? So I think you can compare sector by sector. You can, so that's one way to look at performance as well.
I think the other thing for performance is, what are you trying to achieve, right? Like if you're closer to retirement, are you looking for enough assets that you can sell down? So, there's this whole theory of die with zero, right? Is that your goal, right? So you're just, asset building so that you can sell periodically and you've got maybe enough asset coverage there, or are you looking for yield during a period of time? So again, it's also thinking about, why am I doing this? Because if you need a steady income, how are you going to be doing that? Is that, assets that are delivering enough income annually? Or is it that you're going to sell that and then portion that out? Then, keep going. There's a lot of now different ways to think about, what kind of, set of assets you're building up and how liquid they need to be or not liquid. And that, again, comes into what do you want from that asset, right? And then looking at the benchmarking around that, right? Am I getting the right yield on this,
and
comparative to someone else, yeah.
And every asset has its own sort of benchmark, if you will. And that's how you can also compare by asset class.
Yeah.
Just one comment, which I agree with you, which is family does affect the way you invest, because like my dad invested in property, and also he's really good at picking shares. Mm-hmm. So I've done the same, except I have I'm not investing so much in individual shares as much as he is. You've inspired me now to go for ETFs.
Not investment advice.
Yeah. Well, no, I've been thinking of, okay, so how? That is another option that I will investigate. And so thank you very much.
We've covered a lot today, and I just wanted to ask the two of you, is there anything that we should have talked about that we haven't, that you think?
So much.
Let's go one each, if there is, that's top of mind for you.
Well, this is the entrepreneur stories.
Yeah.
So I do want to share, I think, as entrepreneurs, I think, it's a really difficult journey, as you know, right? And I think that, it's so important to be building something with the right person. And, picking your co-founder is super hard. It's more art than science, right? And I think what is really important, because we could not do what we do if, I think we weren't doing it together, right? Because, what's that adage? It's like, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, do it together, right? And I think for me, some of the really important things that I've learned, I think, about, kind of working with Nicole and building Sophia, this mission-driven platform, is that I think the first thing is that you really need to agree on what good looks like, right? I think that is so important in kind of, you're picking a co-founder. I think the second thing is you need to know what good enough looks like, right? What is good enough? Because when you have different standards of what good enough looks like, that's when problems happen. And I think the last thing, and Nicole and I laugh all the time when we talk about this, is that I think you need to be working with someone who works at the same pace, who thinks at the same pace as you, and our pace is very fast. So I think, if you are on an entrepreneurial journey, I think
you have to align many ways.
You have to align in so many ways. And I think those are three really important things that I just wanted to bring up, because it is hard. You want to be building something great, and you want to be building something great with somebody who agrees on what great looks like.
Does that resonate?
100%. Yes.
Yeah. So it's interesting, because I had a question right at the beginning about, do you guys like working together? And having sat with you guys, I thought, this is a stupid question, because it's very clear. It's very clear that you do. And I think co-founder dynamics can be incredibly difficult, but when it works, it's very obvious, and it seems like it works here, which is awesome.
I think you have to create a lot of ooh moments. And what are ooh moments? That's when Nicole and I are, having brunch on a Friday at our founder meetings, and we're just spitballing, brainstorming. And literally we're like, ooh, ooh, ooh.
We were literally on a call with someone once, and they showed us something, and one of us was on mute and the other one, and we're both like, ooh, but you can only hear one of us. We were like, ooh. It was so funny, because it was like making each other. I think also spending the time to sit around and spitball a bit, I think is really important, because you just always just thinking through, like you have to have that time for the brain to kind of expand a bit as well. So.
Yeah. The other thing that I love that you said was, and you said it earlier when you were asked the question about your investment portfolio, you said Sophia was part of your investment portfolio. And I think as entrepreneurs, probably our biggest investment is investing in ourselves and our businesses, and believing in ourselves and what we're doing.
Yes. And I was going to say the one thing that probably you could do a whole podcast on around this is the murkiness between personal finances and business finances.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. And there is, it's something that we want to make sure, like that's what we're very interested in discussing. We work with corporates, and particularly, you said, how do you start investing? Well, in that corporate space, we're talking, pensions and different things, right? But when you're a founder, you don't have a lot of that in place, right? Or it's not there, or you need to build to a size where you start factoring that in. And I mean, we're starting to work with communities, because to us, that's really important. How do we bring together that personal and business finance element so that women are looking after themselves whilst looking after their business, and that long-term you're winning on both fronts? And I think there's a lot of opportunities to explore that more, because people just don't pay themselves enough. They're not maybe putting their own health insurance, you might have business insurance, but there's all these different things that you may not be doing. And you'll also maybe have, whether there's flux in income because of that, like there's a lot of uncertainties there. And I think that that's really important. And particularly when a lot of women are sole founders, particularly when they, there's a lot around there that could be really explored as well.
Christine, Nicole, thank you so much. the passion comes through, the obsession comes through. Definitely. It's infectious. And thank you to everyone for being here.
Thank you.
Where can people follow you guys if they want to learn more?
So LinkedIn is definitely either of our profiles or Sophia. Follow us on there. We're going to be sharing a lot more, over the coming year around different opportunities and different things we're working on. So,
Awesome. Thank you so much. And we'll have some drinks.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.